All right, welcome everybody. It's so great to have you here with us. I'm going to stop sharing the screen and see all your beautiful faces, those of you who have your video going. And I'd like to say a special hello to Jeff Shannon, one of our speakers who I haven't had a chance to say hi to yet. It's great to see you. And we also have Rafael Luna. So nice to see you, Jeff.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Thanks. All right, we'll officially get started here. My name is Jana Mori. I work in the Career Center at Santa Barbara City College, and I'm the student program advisor. And I'd like to thank you all for attending the Behavioral Health and Justice Systems Career Pathways panel. We in the Career Center have been working with Dave Saunders, one of the instructors in the Justice Studies program, as well as Ann Redding, who's the associate professor and department chair. And in a minute, Ann, I'm going to put you on the spot if that's okay to tell our folks here just a little brief bit about the academic program that you are chairing. I'd also like to take a minute to introduce a couple of people in the Career Center, because if any of you after this event want to know more about internships or jobs or careers in any of the fields that we touch on today, we'd love to have you contact us. I'll go ahead and start with Valerie Yerman. Val Yerman is one of the CTE career counselors and would be delighted to meet with you. The Justice Studies program is under her purview in the Career Center. And then Christina McGuire, if you want to give a little wave there, she is our internship coordinator in the Career Center. Internships are fantastic ways to get jobs. I think we might even hear a story about that today. We'll see. And she would be delighted also to meet with you. I do want to give out a shout out too to Valerie Gonzalez. She doesn't know I'm going to do this, but she is in my Toastmasters club. So if anybody is interested in learning about how to feel comfortable speaking in front of people, even with your classmates or just in general for confidence, Toastmasters is a fantastic program, and I or she would be happy to speak with you about that. All right, with that, let's go on to Ann. If you are available to unmute and share us a little bit about your program, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Can folks hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Looking good.
Thank you. I can see a lot of my students are lurking, but they don't have their videos on, which is fine. So I want to say just thank you for all of our students who are here today. So the School of Justice Studies is what I like to refer to as a 21st century version of what the old kind of administration of justice, criminal justice programs used to be. So as such, we have very little to no emphasis on some of the old kind of cop shop classes that used to be offered, like report writing and things like that. And instead, we require courses like ethics in the criminal justice system and diversity, law, and justice. And we have 4 different pathways. And this is entirely based on what our students have told us about what are they interested in, what are their professional and academic goals. And so we have our law enforcement pathway, we have a criminology pathway. So folks who are particularly interested in things like the criminal mind and why crime happens, that's a great way to go. We have a legal studies program for folks who are pretty sure they're going to end up somewhere in the legal sector, perhaps as a lawyer, for example. And finally, we have an AJ for transfer degree, which I'm just going to take advantage of having the students hostage here for a moment to remind them that our transfer degree, if you fulfill all those requirements, will guarantee you a space at a Cal State University criminal justice program as a junior. And so you get all of your lower division stuff done here for less money and a great education, greater I would even suggest in some cases, and then you enter as a junior. And so I'll get off my soapbox about that. We have a lot of students who are going to go into the criminal justice system or something to do with the justice system. And we have an awful lot of students who take our classes just because they are interesting. I mean, who doesn't want to know about the study of evil and the study of murder? And so we have a lot of folks who just are attracted to the interesting and sometimes unusual courses that we offer.
Thank you, Anne. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And on that note, I wanted to add that on the Career Center website, Santa Barbara City College's Career Center website, we do have another panel that we did a while ago that has a different stream, a different focus, and this panel is going to be related to justice studies. And I was reminded of that when you're talking about the different programs. So I'd
Yeah,
like
that's a great panel.
that was a great panel. We had our
Yeah.
DA and forensics, and yeah, it was sheriffs.
Somebody from the FBI, a forensic psychologist. I mean, and
Yeah.
again, I'm going to back off. I know other people more important than me have something to say, but if there are any students who are listening, if you go to the Career Center and take a look at that particular career panel, you're going to see a lot of additional jobs that you might be interested in. I'm going to mute myself for the sake of everybody.
Thanks, Anne. With that, I'm going to go ahead and just move forward right into introducing our speakers today. And then we'll move into some panel questions. And then if you have some questions along the way, please feel free to put them in our chat. And maybe Dave, you can monitor that a little bit for us. And then we can have a time for Q&A, of course, afterwards, after I regale our panelists with questions. So to start, let's go with Jeff Shannon. Jeff is the Crisis Service Manager for the Santa Barbara County Department of Behavioral Wellness. He's a licensed mental health professional and provides counseling to inmates in the county jail. He's also a retired police officer who has provided training to law enforcement officers on how to effectively interact with people experiencing mental health crises. So welcome to Jeff. Rafael Luna is a correctional counselor for the Sheriff's Treatment Program in our local county jail, Santa Barbara County Jail. He provides support services to incarcerated individuals and teaches evidence-based curricula that helps guide the development of a pro-social lifestyle. And prior to this, for what he's doing now, he served as a youth services specialist at a local high school and provided our youth with similar supportive services as to what he provides now. And he's a proud alumni of Santa Barbara City College. He was in some of your seats right now, if you're a student here now. And he went on to earn his degree from San Diego State University, both a bachelor's and a master's, and we'll look forward to hearing more about that during our panelist Q&A. What I'll do is I will go ahead and call upon one of you to answer a question so we don't have that awkward Zoom silence and wonder who's going to speak first. So let's go ahead and start with our questions. And Jeff, would you like to go ahead and start to share a little bit about your career path and your education and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you all today. And yes, so actually my career, if you will, started off at Santa Barbara City College. I am also a proud alumni of Santa Barbara City College. You know, if I were to reflect back now on let's say my list of 5 favorite instructors in all of my college, probably 3 of them would be at City College. I think the quality of education, certainly that I got there, was really, really top notch. So yeah, so I started off at City College, and you know, I decided when I was about 18 or 19, if not before, that I wanted to be a counselor. I liked talking with people. I noticed even back probably in middle school that I just really liked talking with my friends about what's going on with their life. And I seemed to have some kind of proclivity or ability to be a good listener and help them through their struggles. So I decided very early on that I wanted to be a counselor. And started working in the field of social services when I was at City College, working at 6-bed residential group homes for kids. They were referred to as severely emotionally disturbed kids, which I think is a heck of a label to put on a young person. And I actually think they still use that label, but at any rate, so I worked full time in the social services all the way through my undergraduate school, transferred to Cal State Northridge in psychology, full time working through my undergraduate. Then I moved to the Bay Area in San Francisco, took a year off college and worked full time. Worked with kids that got kicked out of the San Francisco Public School District as a timeout teacher, which is maybe a foreshadowing of a career that came later, which was law enforcement. So the kids would get kicked out of the classroom and they'd come see me in the timeout room. And then I spent 8 years working in the San Francisco County Jail doing direct services, counseling with inmates there, which was an amazing experience. And, you know, I could go on about that, but it was great. And got my master's degree and got my license as a marriage and family therapist. And then I decided to change careers into law enforcement. And so, you know, at a cocktail party, sometimes people say, well, you were a therapist and then you're a cop. Those don't, how could you get anything so different? And really my rebuttal to that is that they're actually not that different. I seriously look at law enforcement as a helping profession, just like I did as a therapist. And one of the things that I loved most about being a patrol officer on the streets was that it allowed me the opportunity to talk with people and treat them with dignity and respect and listen to what's going on with them. And I found that very rewarding. So I did that for 14 years. And in the middle of my law enforcement career, I started kind of combining law enforcement and psychology in a couple different ways. I created a program in Berkeley called Crisis Intervention Training. The model itself of crisis intervention training didn't come from me. It's about 25 years old and goes back to Memphis, Tennessee, where it started, but they didn't have a program there. And that whole program is about, and you know, I should have asked you how much time you want me to talk, because I could sit here for an hour and a half. So I'm going to speed it up a little bit, okay?
That'd be great.
How much detail you want here. Anyway,
all important things that you've done, and this is kind of your career track to where you are today, right?
Right. So I'm 95 years old, so I got a lot of career behind. So anyway, yeah, so the program, the CIT program, is about training police officers in how to manage people in mental health crises in an effective way. So I did that. I wound up doing a lot of teaching with law enforcement around resilience and wellness and how to stay healthy throughout their career. It's a very high burnout field. There's a lot of health problems associated with a career in law enforcement. And retired in 2017 from law enforcement, you know, went right back to full-time mental health. I've had a private psychotherapy practice for probably 15 years now. I specialize in treating first responders, firefighters, and police officers. And last April, I relocated from the Bay Area back to my hometown, where I'm in Santa Barbara again. And it's an administrative position with the county Department of Behavioral Wellness. I oversee programs and people in the crisis field. And so I find it actually quite rewarding, but in a different way in terms of fostering and mentoring young clinicians and young people in this career. And that is my story. Thank you for listening. I know that was probably way too long, but sorry.
No, that was perfect. And Jeff, do you mind sharing with us what your master's degree was in?
Yeah, it's clinical psychology.
Okay, great. That's great. Thank you so much. Rafael, your turn.
All right. Thank you, Jeff, for sharing. I also want to thank all of you for inviting me and being part of this panel. I really appreciate it. I too, went to Santa Barbara City College. I'm a local. Went to Dos Pueblos High School. Go Chargers! And I decided to go to SBCC because of pretty much, trying to save some money. I wanted to do my 2 years of City College, save some money, knock those 2 out before university, and like Jeff said, top-notch quality education at City College. I really do feel like SBCC pushed me, and just maybe the student that I was, I had Professor Redding. I had Professor Mahoney as well. When I went into SPCC, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, what field I wanted to pursue. So I was just kind of taking classes here and there, some mechanic classes, and then I saw the study of evil, study of murder, and I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Let's give it a try. And so I jumped in, and I was just hooked. I was just hooked with those classes, and I wanted to know more. And then I decided to pursue, an AS in Administration of Justice, which was back then. Now it's Justice Studies, and I got an emphasis in Criminology. I was just so interested in trying to understand, what causes delinquency and just really into the criminology side of things. And so I did that at City College, and then I transferred. I went over to San Diego State, and I got my bachelor's there in criminal justice as well, and a bachelor's in sociology. Those two paired up really nicely, just because I still wanted to, study people and behaviors, and really just try to understand what led people to, to do crimes and live a life of criminality, really. And so, and then I have some, family experiences and those kinds of things. And so I brought in a lot of that I felt like I could relate to some of those things, and I really wanted to understand more. And so I was at San Diego State for those 2 years. I did a lot of internships. I interned in prisons down there, took some prison tours. I interned with the young people. What else did I did a lot of ride-alongs. I was really into law enforcement and wanted to pursue a job in law enforcement. It was kind of what I was aiming towards. And so I was really focused on that. And, I was involved in student organizations, which is really important. All those things are really, really important, great experience for when you start applying for jobs. And so I was really involved in the University of San Diego State. And I created a lot of contacts. I met a lot of great people in the field, a lot of mentors, and just kind of created those connections. And then after I graduated, I thankfully got a job as a youth services specialist with a nonprofit locally in Santa Barbara. So I came back home. At the same time, I was applying to some law enforcement jobs that, wasn't going very well. I was kind of young and whatnot. And so I started as a youth services specialist and working with high schoolers. And I just loved it. I think I found a passion for helping people and doing that kind of counseling side of things, really, and being, I guess you would say, like a mentor and a role model to the younger people. And I mainly worked with young people that were struggling in school, truancy, some some getting in trouble with the law, and some drug and alcohol use. And so I really was able to just be that supportive person for them at the high school, and I did that for 4 years. And then I just kind of fell in love with that kind of helping profession and counseling, and kind of strayed away a little bit from law enforcement and just kind of tried to pursue more of the counseling side of things. At the same time that I was at the high school, I was also pursuing my alcohol and drug counseling degree at City College. So I was taking some classes in the ADC program. And I didn't get to finish because I went to go get my master's. So I went back to San Diego State to pursue a master's degree in criminal justice and criminology. And, just kind of dove deeper into restorative justice, rehabilitation, juvenile justice, those kinds of things. At the same time, I was doing, again, internships and working in the field, part-time jobs, getting to know more people, connections. So all that really, really important stuff that you as students should start thinking about or start doing, at City College and moving forward. So after I graduated from San Diego State with my master's in criminal justice and criminology, I was able to get a job with the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office as a correctional counselor. And same kind of thing as what I was doing with the youth. I was, providing these teaching these curriculums, these evidence-based curriculums that really taught very important life skills to our current, incarcerated people, a lot of our community members. And so that's kind of, and really briefly, my path towards where I'm at today. I think my time as a youth service specialist really helped me better narrow down what I was interested in, what field, what my passion was. And I think also taking some time after my bachelor's to work and get in the field really helped me succeed in my master's program. So any of you who are thinking about going for a master's as well, something to think about. Some people go directly after the bachelor's. I thought about that. I got some good advice from some mentors to go into the field and really just work a little bit. And then I went into my master's after that, and it just went really well for me. So currently a correctional counselor at the Santa Barbara County Jail. Once the new jail in Santa Maria opens up, I will be working there as well. And so I'm excited about that, just because that new jail is really more program focused, and I'm excited to be working at that jail once it opens.
Thanks. I have a couple questions for you. That's a lot of good info. Can you talk a little bit about maybe one of your internships and the value of it? And you also mentioned ride-alongs, which I think is also a good thing for students to know that they can do. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So when I was at City College, I did ride-alongs locally with CHP, with Santa Barbara Police, with the county sheriffs. I just wanted to jump in there as much as possible. That way, all of that experience I could use and put on my resume and whatnot. And so, and it allowed me to really, try to be in the field and see if it was for me or not. When I was with CHP, I don't want to put down CHP, but when I was with CHP, I didn't really enjoy the ride along very much. And so, I kind of, cut out CHP, and I was more focused on police or sheriffs and whatnot. And so just exposing yourself to all the different kinds of, fields and work that one can do. And at the university, I did a lot of internships as well. And thankfully, San Diego State has a great internship program where there's an internship class, a couple classes for internships, and they really focus on providing students in the criminal justice program really good internships. So thankfully, San Diego State had that. But even if the university that you all decide to go to doesn't, seek out your own internships, because all of that experience is so valuable, and it helps you just, again, narrow down what you like, what you don't like. I interned at one of the prisons down in San Diego. That was great. I interned at the firehouse in San Diego too, and that was also awesome. I interned at some kind of like legal, areas. I didn't like it very much. And so all those kinds of, things really help you just, narrow down what you're interested in and what you want to pursue.
Great, thanks. I'm going to keep you on here for a minute, and then we'll get to Jeff. I'd like to know what your typical day is like at work right now. Like what would be a day for you when you arrive at work? What happens?
Yeah, well, I mean, COVID obviously messed a couple things up, so it's different now, but I'm going to talk as if COVID, before COVID. Generally, I go in, and so I'm a correctional counselor with the Sheriff's Treatment Program, better known as STP. And we have about 100 students in that program in the county jail. And there's 5 of us counselors. And we provide groups, we facilitate groups, facilitate curriculum. The program is 12 weeks long. And so an inmate chooses to be part of the program. They, no one's forced. They have to want to be a part of the STP program. And so we get our roster, we get our group of students. It varies by housing unit. So some housing units have about 30 students in our group. Other housing units have maybe around 10 students. And so typically we go in, I have my groups that I'm gonna do that day, let's say Monday. I have 3 or 4 groups or whatnot. And so I'll go into one of the housing units, and all the students will be there. The inmates will be on their desks, and I'll have my curriculum. Let's say it's like an anger management kind of focused curriculum, and then I'll just go through my lesson for that day. Really, go through that evidence-based curriculum and what that lesson is for that day, whether it's triggers or stress relief techniques, what might be it. And I just do that for my remainder of the day groups. And sometimes I do one-on-ones. I'm not a therapist, so I don't do therapy or one-on-one counseling really. It's more about teaching these evidence-based curriculums and practices. We're very CBT focused, so cognitive behavioral kind of therapy techniques and strategies focused. And I do my groups. I'll stay after the groups and talk to a couple of the gentlemen and debrief maybe, and then go to my next group in an hour or two. And it's just it's great. I love it. I get to interact with our incarcerated community members. I get to really learn from them as well. I mean, sure, I'm teaching this curriculum, but I'm also learning a lot from them. And we also provide a lot of other services, discharge planning services, like reentry kind of planning services. We'll have like graduation parties once the 12 weeks are up. We'll have some graduation parties where we might bring in some pizza, and we'll just kind of hang out and talk and listen to music, and it can get pretty fun, pretty emotional sometimes too, because a lot of the men like to share their experiences, and some break down, some cry just because of how the program has helped them or affected them in some way. And so it's really nice to see that side of the jail that most people don't get to see.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Jeff, I was wondering if you would also share about your experience as a psychotherapist for first responders, et cetera. And you've got your own private business right now doing that. So I'd love to hear some more about that. It's hard to pick. You have so many great things to talk about as far as your experience, but I think that might be of particular interest too.
Sure. Yeah, so I have a real passion for helping first responders get through their career, all in one piece, and living lives that are full. And my dad was a police officer, and he died young, and he had a lot of health problems. And I just kind of saw that growing up as a kid. And it obviously affected me to see how much the stress of law enforcement weighed on him. And then, of course, having done the job myself for a few years, I got a firsthand account of it. And it's sad because, the thing about it is when people want to get into, say, law enforcement or firefighting, they don't typically do it for the money. They do it because they want to help their community. And the health profile for law enforcement officers, when we start our career, we tend to be significantly healthier than the general population, both psychologically and physically. But around the age of 50, the profile for law enforcement officers is significantly sicker, both in terms of mental health disorders and physical diseases. And so there's something about the career that really takes a toll on individuals. And for me, that's a passion. And I kind of really enjoy trying to make myself available to talk with a population that generally isn't super excited to talk about their feelings and their internal experience. So, in law enforcement, the role of our feelings really just doesn't play a role. So in a way, they come by it honestly. I've never been at a traffic collision and had my sergeant come onto the scene and ask me, how you feeling? They don't, it's just not part of the thing. And so what happens is, unfortunately, in the culture, the law enforcement culture, and since it's something that I know particularly more about, I'll talk about that. The law enforcement culture also reinforces this idea that, I'm going to take care of my own problems. I don't need any help. I'm a helper myself. And so it becomes very difficult for them to ask for help when they need it. And ultimately, too often what happens is, by the time they muster the courage to call me, they're on their second divorce and they're about to get terminated from their employment. And that's really too bad. So that's why I like working with the population. For law enforcement, like it or not, credibility is really important. And the fact that I am a retired police officer gives me credibility. Even if I was a complete knucklehead, a lot of times that would work to get people talking to me at least a little bit. And so I just feel like people that get in these careers deserve to live happy lives. They deserve to be the best father or mother or friend or daughter that they can be. And so that's part of the work for me, is trying to identify what's getting in your way from flourishing in this life, not just surviving, but actually flourishing. A joke that I often tell with law enforcement is, you pass Bob, walking down the hallway in the police department, and you say, "Hey, Bob, how's it going?" And he says, 3 years, 2 months, and 4 days, right? So a lot of times, folks are literally counting down the days to their retirement with this erroneous belief that when they retire, they're going to be happy people. And two problems with that. One, there's absolutely no reason why you can't do the work that needs to be done now to be happy right now. Right. And the other problem with that is that too often when people retire, they start having these memories from these critical incidents or these traumatic incidents, and retirement's really not that paradise that they had in their mind. So it's good work, I think. And something that I would just throw out to all of you is this idea of having work that's meaningful, that you find meaningful. It's a subjective thing, where if you find it meaningful and it gives you purpose and direction, I feel extremely fortunate for the work that I do, partly because of that.
So my question to you, Jeff, as a helper of helpers, how do you take care of your own job stress? I know it's hard to follow your own advice, but can you
That's
share
why
about
I'm
that?
laughing. I'm a wreck, man. No, it's that is the question, right? And so what I can tell you, for me, I do a number of things. I play music, I play the guitar, and I play the flute, actually, strangely enough. And I used to love joking with my cop colleagues about that when they found out I play the flute. Boy, that was. But so I play Irish music on the flute. I play the guitar, and when I get done at the end of a day, a lot of times I'll play my guitar. I try to exercise as much as I can. And I like getting outside. I do as much as possible outside. I bought a new surfboard since I moved to town, so I try to get in the ocean. And then the other thing is that I've got a small group of friends that I connect with and talk about life, and that's really important. And I have a meditation practice that I've been doing for many years. It's not that ambitious. I meditate for 10 minutes every single day right before I go to bed, and that's very helpful. So there's a small list of things like that I do.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm going to keep you on before we move to Rafael and ask you, of the different jobs that you had, do you find that one was the most or more satisfying to you than others? And if so, why? What about that job or jobs did you really like?
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting question. Most of my jobs have been very similar, very similar. So I don't want to sound Pollyannish here, but for the most part, I've really liked the work that I've done for the different kind of stage that I've been in my life. I don't really feel like I've got one job that I really loved more than others. The first couple of years in law enforcement, when I was just driving around the streets, that was just extremely fun and, entertaining and meaningful. But most of my jobs have been like that. I don't really think I've had a job where I'm not liking it. And if it gets to the point where it no longer is good, then I usually move on. So unfortunately, I don't think I can answer that question very well.
That's a good answer, though. Because there are different seasons of life, aren't there? And then we discover things as we go through in our career.
Exactly.
About ourselves and about work itself. What did you like or not like about working in the San Francisco County Jail when you were working with inmates? Because you were there for quite a bit of time.
Right. Yeah, that was a really, really good opportunity for me. It was the beginning of my mental health career. And in terms of psychopathology, so on the one level, the different sorts of psychopathology that you're exposed to in the county jail was very, very wide. I would talk with people who worked in the business district of San Francisco, made 4 times as much money as I did, and just got too drunk last night and got arrested. And I would talk with bona fide psychopaths who have been institutionalized most of their life and probably were never going to get out of the institution, and everything in between. So in terms of my clinical training, it was very good. And I always liked, I worked with a lot of people with serious and persistent mental illness like schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. And I found it really great to sit smacks to me of a PhD in psychology or something like that.
So something perhaps in the area of forensic psychology, Jeff?
Yeah. So psychologists, one of the things they do, and I'm not sure it's exactly what this person is getting at, but psychologists in California, they do a lot of fitness competency evaluations. And so someone's arrested for a crime and it's a serious crime and the court thinks that they might be what they call incompetent to stand trial. They will request an evaluation, and this has to be a psychologist, and that psychologist will, and I could really honestly see this being kind of interesting, where you have someone who's, like I said, arrested for something very serious, looking at spending the rest of their life in prison, and maybe it behooves them, or it helps them to pretend that they're quote unquote crazy. And so the psychologist would get in there and do an interview, do some assessments, give them some psychological tests to flesh out the idea of, is this person mentally have a mental health disorder, or are they doing this volitionally? In other words, are they, I'm just going to put it in really crude terms, are they like doing this because they're a criminal type, or are they really mentally ill? And that's something that psychologists do in these evaluations. So that's something that you could do. And but again, I think the person that is asking this question, I would want to know a little bit more about what their interest is. You could be a profiler with the FBI.
Okay, let's see. I've got a question from somebody who wants to know about the interplay between nursing and criminology. Do you work with people who have nursing in their background? And is there any career or career path that combines nursing and criminology?
I don't directly work with nurses at the county jail. I mean, there are nurses at the county jail. The nurses that I really know or cross paths with generally are passing around meds or things like that. But no, to tell you the truth, I at the jail don't really work directly with nurses, at least with the STP program.
Okay, let's see. I've got another question. The difference between the licensed clinical social worker versus the licensed marriage and family therapist. Advantages, disadvantages. Can you weigh in on that, one of you guys?
Yeah, so LCSW, the difference is that the sorts of classes that you take in graduate school are a little different than psychology classes. And I didn't do that, so I don't know directly, but it's more systems type stuff. There's all kinds of different programs within the LCSW. You'd get a master's of social work, and there's lots of different programs with lots of different emphases in that. The LCSW license, one could argue, is a little bit more, it's got more options for you. And the thing specifically that I'm thinking about is hospital settings. Like there's a lot of hospital settings that want LCSWs, but would not hire an LMFT. I cannot think of a job that would take an LMFT, but not an LCSW. So that's kind of how I see it, but my understanding is limited. Rafael, do you want to add anything on that?
No, I think you covered it. I mean, yeah, I don't know too much, to tell you the truth, about SCSWs and LMFTs. I have a couple of friends when I was at YSS that were pursuing their LMFTs, or marriage and family therapy, and so they have their private practices. Again, if you want to do therapy or provide therapy or be a therapist, I do recommend obviously LMFT, but I don't really know the differences between those two, to tell you the truth.
We have I think we have more questions coming, but I do want to be mindful of our time, because we did say we're going to end at 4, but maybe we can do this, Rafael and Jeff, if you want to hang on a little bit longer, if you have time, we can go a little longer, but also I want to give you both time to provide what you think would be a last minute advice for students. And then after that, we'll say whoever wants to leave can go ahead and leave, but then if they want to stay on, they can stay on. So we've got you, Rafael, here front and center. So let's have you give some advice to students who are on right now.
Yeah, so I think best advice I could give is really research what you're interested in. Really research the field that you're interested in, whether it's, some of you are mentioning the FBI, some of you, are mentioning nursing and or law enforcement, police. Really research that, connect with people in the field. Try to find some mentors in that field or in the position that you want to be in eventually. That way you have a better understanding of the path you kind of have to take. I've, some of the people in my program, in my master's program, wanted, to be in the FBI or whatnot, but the program that we were in really wasn't for that, or wasn't really focused on that. So really research what you're interested in, how to get there, connect with people in the field, have them kind of help you, guide you. I think that's the biggest advice I can give, is just making sure that you don't just jump into a program and thinking that that's going to cover everything. Really look into it deeply and just connect with people.
Great. That's where career counselors can help you too.
Mm-hmm.
And then on that note, Christina and Val, could you put your emails in the chat? So if students want to connect with you another time, they'll be able to see how to connect with you. Jeff?
Yeah, I would just say, briefly that all working adults across this country, there's kind of two different categories for the 5:30 moment of truth. When I say that, it's 5:30 in the morning, your alarm clock has gone off, and you're going to work. And a lot of people, when that happens, they just shrug their shoulders and they say, oh my goodness, I can't believe I got to go to this job again. And it's just a terrible, and we spend a lot of time at work. On the other hand, it's possible your alarm goes off literally at 5:30 in the morning, and the first thing that you think about is, wow, I'm going to have a cool day. I like this. And I get up with energy, and I've had both experiences. So what I would say is, do your best to just do some reflection on what is that job when your alarm clock goes off at 5:30 in the morning. Imagine what it is that you're doing that would get you up in an excited way to go to work every single day. It's not an exact science. You might get it wrong. You might have to change, but I think doing some of that reflection would be it'd be time well spent.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right. If you need to sign off, please do so. I do want to let you know that both Rafael and Jeff are on LinkedIn. So if you have a LinkedIn account, you can connect with them that way. And if you men would like to put your contact info in the chat as well, you're welcome to do that too. But I want to formally say our time is ended, but we can stay on a little bit longer and answer some questions if you guys are open to that.
One question that I have from a student in the chat asks what they can do to help, or what helped you get internships and jobs both in college and after college. Like how did you do that? How did you get an internship? How did you get a job? What helped? What worked?
Yeah, I think, again, thankfully, San Diego State and the criminal justice program had a great internship program. And so that helped, obviously. But I think, preparing for interviews is very, very important, because most internships are going to require some kind of interview, right? It's kind of like a job, but you're not getting paid. And so really prepare for the interviews and learn, the skill of public speaking and getting comfortable with speaking, answering questions. I think researching the organization or program that you're going into or want to intern in, because showing them that you are actually interested in what they're doing is very important. So if you want to intern at a police department, research the police department, get to know who the chief is, or things about the department, that way they see that, oh wow, this person really knows their stuff, and they really are, they have this initiative to really want to learn. And so I think that's just my advice, is really have initiative, take initiative, search online, find internships, reach out to wherever you want to intern at, and talk to people, show up and be like, hey, I'm really interested in interning here. Can you connect me with the right person? That's really going to get you far if you do that. So that's kind of the advice that I have.
Let's see, I got a lot of questions about the FBI. I don't think that's really up in your area. I will offer if students want to come to connect with me about pathways to get into the FBI. I'm easy to find, Dave Saunders at School of Justice Studies. If either of you wants to talk about the pathways of behavioral health in the FBI, have at it.
Yeah, I will say though, Dave, like having guest speakers of the FBI. I don't know if SVCC has like a student organization, but generally, you bring in guest speakers. We've had a couple FBI guest speakers back when I was at the university, and they're really helpful. They'll give out their contact info, and you can communicate with them. Also, go on the FBI website. They have internships. They provide internships for students or recent grads. There's a recent grad program where you can apply to work at the FBI if you just recently graduated. Also, the FBI hires, I think, like accountants and a bunch of different fields. It's not just criminal justice majors. There's a lot of different fields that the FBI searches for. So just go on the website. There's a lot of information there, and then and just go to one of the counselors on the campus, and I'm sure they can guide you in the right direction.
Very good. I am out of questions in the chat. Anybody out there? I see some of my students. I know you well enough to know you're going to be like, oh, I should have asked that. So come on, it's a friendly crowd. Fire away. Don't make me call on you. Oh, Val has something. Yeah.
I have one. As I counsel students all the time.
Val, I'm going to interrupt you here.
And
Excuse me, Val. Your sound is not coming
having
through.
taken the justice studies classes here.
Your sound is not coming
Okay.
through, so
Never
maybe you could
mind.
write your question in the chat. We have your network bandwidth is low.
Oh, I got a good question. So, and this is, I don't know which of you might want to touch on this, but say somebody has their own mental health issues that they're working through. Is that going to preclude them from pursuing a career in behavioral health or therapy or that sort of thing?
Rafael, you want to start and I'll maybe add, maybe?
Sure. I mean, I don't know too much. I guess it just depends on the employer and the field that you're applying for, but I don't think anyone with their own mental health issues, and again, it just depends on what mental health issues, we're talking about, but, many people struggle with certain mental health issues, whether it's anxiety or depression or whatnot. And this field does create, these kinds of fields create burnout as well. And so when I was a YSS, a youth service specialist, we also went to, I guess you would say a form of therapy where we had a therapist where we had to talk to and kind of, decompress and go through all the stuff that we were carrying because of all the heaviness that is going on, when you're working with certain populations. And so, like, I don't know whether it will eliminate you from a certain field, but I think in a way having that kind of experience might also kind of help in certain ways. I know a lot of therapists or counselors or alcohol and drug counselors who also struggled with substance abuse or mental health. And so that's kind of why they want to go into this field, is because they have personal experience with it. So it could help in those certain ways. Jeff, you want to add?
I actually really like what you just said. I think that's right on the money. When we go see a counselor or a therapist, we're not looking for someone that's read all the textbooks necessarily. We want to talk to someone that's had some lived experience, and that's really important. And again, I also agree, it kind of depends on what kind of mental health condition we're talking about, but in the mental health field, the largest consumers of mental health services are mental health professionals. And I can tell you, I've consumed a ton of psychotherapy in my life, and it's been extremely helpful. It's actually part of the requirement in graduate school is to go to therapy. But even beyond that, I just think it's important. So that's the long way of saying, no, I don't think you're precluded from getting in the field. It might make you actually really good as long as you have awareness and you're working on your stuff.
Excellent. Thank you. And then I know you guys you're super generous with your time. Thank you. I got a good question about, say somebody gets a 2-year degree from City College in criminal justice or criminology or one of those. Was your recommendation to continue on with something in the criminal justice criminology field, or perhaps to major in something as an undergraduate or graduate in psych or sociology or something like that? What do you think about that?
Yeah, again, I think it depends on the field that you might want to go. Where you really want to go, what you really want to work in, or what profession you want to have. But if you still don't kind of know, it might be good to diversify, I guess, your degrees in a way. Psychology, sociology, those kind of related fields. Sometimes the classes even overlap in some kind of way. Or even like a major and a minor sometimes could be good. So yeah, I think it's great to be able to let's say have an AS in administration of justice or justice studies and a bachelor's in psychology and maybe in a master's in something else. I think that looks really good. But again, depending on what field you want to go into, maybe research that, and that way you know exactly what's going to really help you and help you stand out for when you start applying.
All right. Well, I don't have any other questions in the chat.
Okay, let's call it a day, and let's thank our panelists for coming today. You did a fantastic job. It was so informative, so well done. We really appreciate your time, taking your time out of your days, and we wish you well. So thanks again, and everybody, we hope that we see you in the Career Center or in the classroom.
Great.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all.